This is a story about how I came to play with Jimmy Cobb. In 2003, the International Association of Jazz Educators was doing their first convention outside of the USA and in Toronto, actually. And I found out that one of the many things they would be doing was a seminar about the musical legacy of Wynton Kelly. So I thought, well, that would be fun to see. And I looked at who was going to be on the panel, and among some other great guests was going to be Jimmy Cobb. So I called up my buddy John Sumner, who was a great drummer and a big fan of, well, all jazz musicians, but especially Jimmy Cobb. I mean, who isn't? The guy, was kind of blues drummer and the last living guy from that record. And I mean, everybody loves his playing. And anyway, I mentioned this convention to John, and he said, well, where's Jimmy playing? And I said, well, no, there's no playing. He's not playing. He's going to be on a seminar. And of course, John always had a bit of a problem with jazz education, even though he was quite an educator himself. He always made fun of education, and he just thought, well, this is so weird, like having Jimmy Cobb in town for this convention and not having a gig for him is just ludicrous, in his opinion, which actually makes sense because, I mean, a guy like him is coming to town and there's nowhere to go hear him play. He's going to be on a panel discussing Wynton Kelly. Well, that's pretty funny. I mean, that's great, but where can I go hear him play? Anyway, so that was Sumner's attitude. He said, you should get a gig going and during that time and call Jimmy and give him a gig. And I said, John, yeah, I'm going to call Jimmy Cobb. Like, really? You think I'm going to call this out of the blue? The great Jimmy Cobb? I said, besides, the only gig I've got that week that he's here is something with you, so you'd have to lose your gig. He said, I don't care. I'd be happy to bring my drums to hear him play. And I said, yeah, well, that's not going to happen. He said, you know what? Never mind that. Why don't you set up a recording session with him? I said, John, are you crazy? I mean, there's one thing to do a gig, but just record? He says, what the hell? Get yourself a bass player and get a studio and record with him. I said, there's no way that's going to happen. He said, listen, if you do this, I'll bring the drums. I know exactly what Jimmy Cobb likes. I know the cymbals he likes. I know all the drums. I know how he tunes them. I'll bring the drums. You don't have to worry about that. It'd be my pleasure if I could come here and play for an afternoon in a studio. I said, yeah, well, that's not going to happen. And I hung up the phone, and one of the things that John and I had going was always trying to mess with each other's heads. So, that was left at that. And I immediately started thinking about it. I thought, what did I really mess with John? I know, I'll actually try and do this. So I proceeded to get a hold of, the first thing was call the IAJE, which is the International Association of Jazz Educators, and then find out Jimmy Cobb's phone number, which they were kind of reluctant to give me. And I thought, well, what the heck, I said, I have a gig for him. Well, what is it? I said, well, it's a recording session while he's here anyway. He's got this seminar. I've got time in a studio, which I didn't have at that point, but and I got a gig. I'm sure he'd want to do a gig while he's here. A recording session. They said, okay. So I called up Cobb's number. I got his wife, I think, running interference. Who the hell are you? And blah, blah, blah. But very polite. And I just said, it's just a recording session. She said, okay, I'll put him on. So now I'm talking to Jimmy Cobb on the phone. And I said, Mr. Cobb, I've got a recording session. It's you, me, and a bass player, trio, playing tunes, no rehearsal, 6 hours. That's it. No extra days, nothing. Would you like to play? And I also said, I can pay scale at least. He said, well, scale's not going to cut it. I said, okay, well, then what do you want? He said, double scale. I said, okay, no problem. So basically, you're looking at paying 2 guys for the price of 3. I mean, you're getting, it's Jimmy Cobb. I'm getting to record with him. So big deal. So twice scale, pension, all that stuff. I filed a contract, did it up right. And then I said, okay, now I got to get myself a studio. So I find a studio, Cherry Beach, get that. I may have found the bass player first, actually. Then I thought, well, who can I call on bass? So I thought, what would be great for this is PC. I was thinking PC. Who do I know with those initials? Pat Collins. PC, Paul Chambers. So I thought, well, this is great. So I called Pat, and I'll never forget it. I said, I got a recording session for you. And he said, what is it? I said, it was just trio thing with Jimmy Cobb on drums. And he just about fell off his chair. That's quite a fun thing to be able to call a guy and say that to him. So now I had that together. I had called the studio. I had a date that Cobb could do it. I had the money worked out. And there was one more thing to do, which was the best part, which was get the drums, which meant calling Sumner, which is the whole point of this thing. So I call up John. I said, John, I think it was January 14th, something like that. I said, listen, man, I need your drums on the 14th. He says, what's the gig? And I said, oh, it's no gig, not for you. He says, what the hell are you talking about? I said, well, I need your drums because I got Jimmy Cobb to do a recording session with me. And you have to know, John Sumner never cursed or used bad language, but in this case, he made an exception and went, what the? Like that. So that was amazing to get him, mess him up. Because, we left it. It took 2 weeks to organize all this. So it was out of his mind completely. So I got to one-up John there, and it's because of him that I had the nerve, more as a dare, to call Jimmy Cobb. And then we got to play. And of course, that was magical. First of all, it was kind of nerve-wracking because, you can't really hear very well. You're recording without ever having played together. The headphone mix, all that stuff, trying to get that together. And then, having a bit of tentativeness on my part. I know that Pat probably thought the same thing for him. But then we warmed up to each other and we played. And I think every track, maybe but one on that whole recording is first takes. And I also remember, and Pat mentioned this in his blog or your blog, that we were coming to the end and I was kind of fading out. I'm going, I don't want to work him too much. He's 75 years old, and I'm happy. I got to play. It's been 5 hours or whatever it is. Let's just call it. And he said, no, man, you need some more. I said, no, we don't need to play anymore. He said, no, you should do another tune. Let's do another tune. I said, okay. So this is completely unplanned. And I remember it was invitation. Just called the tune, played the tune once through, and that's on the recording. So he was such a gentleman and such a great guy. And the other thing I remember, again, Pat mentioned this, we remembered a lot of things the same way, was that when I did the intro to Someday My Prince Will Come with that pedal F, and Jimmy was playing that, playing the drums there. It was kind of like being immersed in the recording with Wynton Kelly, except for he wasn't there, but Paul Chambers and Jimmy Cobb, or in this case, Pat Collins and Jimmy Cobb. And it just was totally amazing. And I was so lost in it that I could not remember that I had to play the melody. I kept imagining Miles coming in with that sound, and I realized, well, Miles isn't here. You have to actually play the song, man. So wake up. So that's what I did, and we played. So that was the end of the recording, and fine. And then after it came out, I think not long after, we got to do a week at the Senator, and that was even better because I wish that had been recorded, because by then, when you're playing a gig, you're loose. And to play 6 nights in a row with Jimmy Cobb and Pat Collins, and get better and better every night and more at ease. I mean, the recording should have been made after that. But anyway, that was my brush with greatness. So thanks for the opportunity to tell you that story. And it's a story that needs to be told, mostly because of the influence of the late, great John Sumner, and how that came about. It was really because of him.